Hi, everybody. Are you being held accountable or are you being bullied at work? This is the question for this week. I'm Dr. Karen. If we haven't met, I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called DK Leadership. It is a global leadership coaching company, and we work with organizations globally on helping them learn leadership tools to help grow and scale their business and also develop their teams. And a lot of things we love to do is teach concepts that entrepreneurs and professionals can use both at work and actually in their families actually as well. So this is a great topic, bullying or accountability. And sometimes we get really a little bit confused with what really is the difference. And so it's really important that we actually understand it. So the first thing I want to highlight is in terms of bullying and I just want to share with you some of the stats, which is actually really interesting. 30%, so this comes out of Harvard Business Review, 30% of people said they have experienced bullying at work. 30%. Okay, so, and actually, I think it actually might even be a little bit higher. So what exactly is it? Because this is something that is really interesting when I talk to entrepreneurs or professionals or HR. They're like, oh my goodness, Karen, people are like throwing this bullying word all over the place. And the problem is that if we overuse this word, then it loses its power. And there's a lot of people that are really being bullied. The problem is that a lot of people are not being bullied, but they're using that word. And so it's losing its power. So it's really important that we do not overuse this word. Okay. So what exactly is bullying? Bullying it's yelling. It is spreading rumors. University of Mary Washington says it includes behavior that intimidates, offends, degrades, or humiliates a worker. That's what it is. Okay. So it's really, and it can be intentional or it can actually be unintentional. That is bullying. Bullying is aggressive, okay? It is aggressive. Bullying is totally different than accountability. And we're going to get into accountability and how that's also part of feedback. And if this topic interests you, first of all, make sure you like our YouTube channel, but also we've got a fabulous free resource called On Feedback, because we're going to be talking about the power of feedback. So if you don't have that freebie yet, just write a feedback down below and somebody from our team will actually send that to you because this is really important when we're actually talking about bullying and accountability, that we're actually understanding in terms of the power of feedback. Okay, so step number one is actually understand what bullying is. Step two is really now understanding accountability. So what is accountability? Accountability is basically when a person is supposed to do a certain job by a certain deadline to a certain standard, and whether or not we are the parent or the HR, the manager, the entrepreneur, whatever our role is, and we are really trying to hold that person accountable to make sure that they are doing what they are supposed to do. Okay, so here's a standard. We need to make sure that we're following through to making sure that that person is actually doing their standard. So accountability is totally separate than bullying. So all great leaders, all great entrepreneurs, all great professionals, all great parents need to learn how to hold people accountable. Everybody, all of us, we all need to learn this skill. However, to hold people accountable, you can either be aggressive or you can be assertive. And it's really important that we learn to be assertive when we are trying to hold people accountable. So just because we're trying to hold people accountable doesn't necessarily mean that we're bullying. Now, sometimes a person could be a bully as they're trying to hold a person accountable. Obviously, we don't want to do that. The goal is, how can we hold people accountable and being assertive? And so if you haven't read my book, The Three Chairs, I talk about this on page 48. It's very interesting. 25 to 40%, I talk about this in the book, 25 to 40% of people in the workplace talk about the amount of conflict that they have. And they, so much time and energy is wasted because they don't actually know how to deal with it. The secret sauce, my friends, is we need to learn how to be assertive. That is a secret sauce, is learning how to be assertive. This is our third takeaway. So how can you be assertive? We want to hold people accountable. It's a super important skill as a leader, both in work and at home. How can we actually hold people how can we help people be accountable? Is we have to learn how to be assertive. So the secret sauce with being assertive, the secret sauce between assertive and aggressive, okay, is the language. Okay, it's the language, and it's also tone and body language and all that, but it's really language. And so the key words are I think, I feel, I need, from my perspective, in my opinion. All of that language is part of being assertive. That is very important. When we're trying to hold people accountable, we want to make sure that we are using assertive language. Now, what's fascinating to me is I actually see a little bit of gender that plays out in this. And I am a female. I am a female. I work a lot with men in terms of in business circles. And what's fascinating to me is that I can be assertive, and for a lot of my peers that are male, they actually understand that, and they actually respond actually quite well to that. If I sometimes, and I've seen this a lot, and if you are a female and you might actually relate to this, is that if I'm speaking to more females and I'm being assertive, sometimes what I find happens is that they interpret that as being aggressive. It's fascinating, actually, that somehow as women, when we stand up for ourselves or we're trying to hold people accountable, somehow that gets translated into that's aggressive. No, that's not aggressive. Aggressive is you language. You do this, you do that. It's an attack of a person. It's you. Aggressive is not assertive. In my book, I talk about the bully kind of on that that right chair. That right chair is aggressive. They attack the person. The person on the left chair, they avoid things at all costs. They kind of deflect it. They're feedback fragile, as I call it. That middle chair is the assertive, that confident leader where they will hold people accountable. I actually think it's actually one of the toughest jobs of great leaders is how can we hold people accountable from that middle chair? Okay, from that middle chair. If you haven't seen my TED Talk, go watch my TED Talk. I talk about the 3 chairs and how it applies to all parts of our life. But it's really important. How can we be that middle chair leader to hold our teams accountable using assertive language? And so that's really, really important that you actually learn that assertive language. I talk about it in pages 50 and 51. It's all kind of sprinkled throughout the book. But this is really important that we learn how to be assertive in our language as we're trying to hold people actually accountable. The fourth thing really quick is, a lot of times when we're talking about, again, bullying, we're talking about accountability, we're talking about kind of this overarching kind of theme around communication. It's really important that we are open to certainly giving the feedback and learning how to give feedback, and that's part of in terms of holding people accountable, but it's also really important about learning how to receive feedback. So you might, in this exchange, let's say you're trying to be a great leader. You're trying to be a great leader. You're trying to use that assertive language. You're trying to hold somebody in your team accountable. And one of the things you are trying to figure out is in terms of being open. And one of the things you want to do is be open to hearing their feedback. So while you're trying to learn to be assertive and hold people accountable and be a really healthy, great leader who sits in that middle chair, in exchange, you might actually also hear some feedback from them that maybe your language could have been a little bit different, or your timing was a little bit off, or something around your delivery could have been a little bit better. And again, when we are looking at trying to hold people accountable, trying to build great teams, we want to make sure we're a great leader in that middle chair. We don't obviously want to ever be even, in that arena in terms of what could be perceived as from bullying. Is you want to make sure that you are open to hearing feedback. And so in the scorecard that I shared with you, again, you can write down feedback below. Somebody from your team will send that to you, but you'll actually receive a 1-pager around the importance about actually giving and receiving feedback. Very powerful. And this is really, really critical to learning how to hold a person accountable, to sit in that middle chair and to be actually a great leader. And the last one, everybody, and just the last kind of takeaway on this is actually called takeaways. And so in any kind of exchange, whether or not you're dealing with a tricky team situation or a client situation or a colleague situation, is in all situations, my encourage is, what is your takeaway? What could you have learned in this exchange? How could you have done things a little bit differently? How could you have communicated your expectations maybe a little bit more clear? Should you actually have sent an email kind of outlining the expectations? Should you have actually maybe changed the scheduling or the timing of your expectations? What is your takeaway in all exchanges? Okay, remember that all of us are a work in progress. We're all a work in progress. So in any tricky situation, if we can kind of say, okay, what's my takeaway? What did I do really well in this? And what could I have done differently so that the next time I have something a little bit similar, I know I'm going to do ABC a little different. What's your takeaway? That's the 5th one, everybody, because it's really important, especially in a lot of these tricky situations that feel really icky and ucky and just kind of like just heavy. You want to make sure that you're empowering yourself with some tools in your toolbox so you know how to be more an effective leader who sits in that middle chair. to make sure you're an assertive leader who's respectfully holding their team accountable. That's the end game. That's the goal. And hopefully you have found this helpful. Make sure you sign up to receive our YouTube channel, to sign up to get notifications on other videos. And also, if you have other topics that you would like me to cover, make sure you let me know below, and somebody from our team gathers them all up. And that's how we choose our content. So thanks, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed. And I look forward to seeing you at one of our other videos.